Welcome back to another edition of the Eleusinian Society. Today's topic will be U.S. presidents and their involvement with extraterrestrial beings. Our journey today starts at the height of World War II, a time most remembered as the last great international war fought between the German, Italian, and Japanese-led Axis and the British, Soviet, and American-led Allies. This time period lives in infamy for its gruesome battles and pivotal political atmosphere. It was a time where democratic ideals clashed with movements based in world domination and national supremacy. The Nazi Party, founded in 1920 and led by Führer Adolf Hitler for most of its existence, brought economic success and a bustling infrastructure to Germany, which suffered economically in the post-Great War era. Known as the Weimar era, the time after World War I between 1919 and 1933 brought astronomically low esteem to the country. Its social atmosphere was crumbling, its economy tanking, with an astounding 4.2 billion German marks to $1 in 1923. Something needed to change. When Hitler became the democratically elected leader of Germany, he brought with him radical government change that grew in popularity quickly among Germans who sought drastic change to their country. What these people didn't know is that they were voting into a movement that would change the very definition of how humanity defines hate and genocide. Hitler, desperate for world domination, would group together some of Europe's greatest scientists and scholars to create and execute some of the greatest technological and scientific advancements of the 20th century. Meanwhile, in the United States, the US government knew that it had to act fast in order to compete with Nazi German ingenuity. President Franklin D. Roosevelt needed to devise a plan that would outsmart and outperform the German advances. But how? There were a rising number of written accounts of Allied forces witnessing unidentified aircraft that would undertake strange flight patterns. Due to the concern of Hitler's scientific advancements, US and British pilots feared that the Germans were responsible for the objects they had sighted. Those who documented their first-hand experiences with these aircraft reported that they would fly close and cause engine malfunctions before rocketing up to the sky and out of sight. No matter how much they fired upon these unidentified crafts, they could never destroy them. These aerial anomalies were later known as Foo Fighters. The office of then-General Dwight Eisenhower, the man in charge of U.S. involvement in Europe during World War II, wrote in a New York Times article that Foo Fighters have become a growing concern for the war effort and that it was likely due to the technological advancements in German engineering. They would launch a covert investigation into these happenings, the first time a government order would be set up specifically for the purpose of unidentified aircraft. On February 24, 1942, sirens rang through Los Angeles, California, as the U.S. military combed the sky for what was then explained as Japanese aircraft invading U.S. airspace. U.S. home forces began an anti-aircraft barrage which lit up the sky and rang through the streets. It was later revealed by the Secretary of the Navy, Frank Knox, as a false alarm. But why would the US government waste so much artillery on a false alarm during the height of World War II? Just days later, on February 27th, a memorandum was given to the Chief of Staff of the United States Army from FDR, stating that the US was informed of atomic secrets learned from celestial devices, and that the US Army was in possession of secrets that could be used as a super weapon of war. This was during the production of the Manhattan Project's atomic bomb, although the solution for it was not yet figured out at the time. Almost 2 years later, in 1944, Roosevelt would once again send a memorandum, only this time it was addressed to the Special Committee on Non-Terrestrial Science and Technology, which eerily reads, "I appreciate the effort and time spent in producing valuable insights into the proposal to find ways of advancing our technology and national progress in coming to grips with the reality that our planet is not the only one harboring intelligent life in the universe. He then goes on to say that the atomic bomb's creation must be perfected using non-terrestrial know-how. This was the first ever document in which a sitting US president openly states that there is certain knowledge the government has regarding alien life in the universe. The next two presidents who followed FDR's presidency would also provide further evidence into a secret knowledge regarding an alien presence on Earth. When FDR died before the atomic bomb was dropped on Japan, Vice President Harry Truman would rise to the position of Commander-in-Chief. Both FDR and Truman were brothers in Freemasonry, a testament of which proves that within their relationship they were bound to oath to keep secrets shared with each other. In the short time following the death of Roosevelt, Truman would be briefed on an overwhelming amount of information on government projects, including the atomic bomb, which was dropped twice on Japan in April of 1945. Truman didn't stop there when it came to the intelligence gained from extraterrestrial knowledge, however, as in 1947, Truman would sign an executive order to create a group known as the Majestic 12, or MJ-12 for short. This group consisted of highly skilled scientists and military leaders who were assigned the task of investigating alien spacecraft. Leaked government documents, which were recovered from a fire, show messages and memos sent between MJ-12 members, and tell an interesting tale of UFO recovery and research. These documents are highly controversial and are said to be an elaborate hoax. However, the type of paper, ink dye, and consistent burn marks are considered by experts to be consistent with the types used in the time of MJ-12's activity. In 1952, air traffic controllers at Washington National Airport reported blips on their radar, which were described as unusual and suspicious. Upon an aerial investigation by military jets, nothing was found to explain what happened in the air that day. A week later, the same event would happen again, this time warranting an article in the New York Daily News, which was titled, "Jets Chase Sky Ghosts Over D.C." When this event occurred, Truman was still president. When asked about these occurrences, he responded, "There's nothing there." Truman's close friend, Missouri banker Thomas Van Sant, described the reaction from the president as an actor reciting a script. When Truman's office was over and President-elect Dwight Eisenhower took office, things started getting a little bit more intense. As stated earlier, General Eisenhower, who had command over U.S. forces in Europe in World War II, had received intelligence of unidentified aircraft, which would only fuel Eisenhower's fascination during his presidency. In 1955, President Eisenhower commissioned the construction of a military-run facility in the Nevada desert for the purpose of testing experimental aircrafts and weapon systems. This facility and area were later known as Area 51. Eisenhower would be the last president recorded to step foot inside of Area 51. Famed theorist and radio host Bill Cooper, who was involved with naval intelligence during the Vietnam War and claims to have worked with some of the most influential government minds of the time, openly stated that Dwight Eisenhower met with extraterrestrials on an impromptu night in 1954 to create diplomatic relationships with them. Yes, Eisenhower supposedly had some kind of incident involving alien communications in 1954, just 7 years after Harry Truman commissioned the creation of the Majestic 12. And a year later, he builds a testing site for experimental aircraft, which has come to be known as the Extraterrestrial Center of the United States. In the 1970s, President Jimmy Carter would file an official report with the International UFO Bureau regarding a sighting that he witnessed. Carter describes it as a light that appeared and disappeared in the sky, repeatedly changing colors and brightness before flying out and away. His experience would warrant him, in his presidency, to sit down with then Director of the CIA and future President George H.W. Bush to discuss transparency between the government and U.S. citizens on UFO intelligence. It is alleged that Bush responded to Carter's wishes to visit Area 51 by explaining that his personal intrigue was not a viable reason to gain entry, and that the information contained inside is on a need-to-know basis. Shortly after this meeting, Carter would end his search for alien knowledge and never discuss the topic again. Bush, however, would go on to attain presidency, with the past knowledge of CIA secrets embedded deep in his mind. The next little bit of this video is more of a theory than based in fact, but still brings into sight the involvement of presidents with alien life forms. Bush was in command when the United States military entered the Gulf War in 1990. The US government cited their involvement on oil and weapons of mass destruction, although another theory has been brought up that brings interesting points to the table. The conflict was started when Iraq's Saddam Hussein invaded Kuwait for their oil reserves, and the United States placed sanctions on Iraq because of this. Iraq is home to one of the oldest human civilizations ever recorded, and its archaeological discoveries are countless. One of the greatest stone monuments ever built is the Ziggurat of Ur, located in Nasiriyah, Iraq, a temple built by the Sumerians as an earthly home for the moon god Nana. Nana, or Sin, was one of the celestial beings that belonged to an ancient race of demigods called Anunnaki, or Sky People, who are oftentimes shown with wings and flying through the sky. Ancient Sumerian texts reveal quite regularly that the earthly beings had close relationships with these demigods, and were even said to drink and eat with them, and even procreate with them. The Ziggurat of Ur was built around the 21st century BC, around the time when other civilizations were rapidly building massive structures that defy the means and capabilities of humanity at the time, such as the Great Pyramids of Giza. It is believed by many theorists that the Ziggurat was not only a massive house fit for God on Earth, but also was a means for the resident demigod to converse and travel through time and space and connect with their higher beings. When George H.W. Bush invaded Iraq, having the knowledge on alien presence on Earth, it is entirely possible that his intentions had extraterrestrial backing. After all, both Saddam Hussein and Hitler funded government programs to uncover the secrets of the Ziggurat previously. George W. Bush would later go on to invade Iraq with the explanation of searching for weapons of mass destruction. Could the weapons Bush was actually talking about be linked to the weapons previous presidents talked about in confidence? Only time will tell. I will finish this video with a fairly recent discovery. In April of 2020, the Pentagon released previously classified UFO footage from decades back, proving that, at least to some extent, the US government has credible knowledge of unidentified aerial phenomenon. Luis Elizondo, the director of government programs with the To the Stars Academy of Arts and Sciences, an organization created by former government employees involved with UFO and extraterrestrial events, said on the matter, "In these uncertain times, it is more important than ever that the government speaks the truth to their citizens, as it is the most important pillar of a democracy." I'd like to thank you for joining us on another edition of the Eleusinian Society. Please make sure to like, comment, and subscribe to see more videos on the way.